Conspiracies Against Wellness with your host, Jonelle Elgaway.
Good evening and welcome to Con Nation. I'm your host, Jonelle Elgaway. Last night, Dr. Terry Lewis went into detail about urinary drug screenings. If you missed last night's show, you can listen in to it or any past shows on CAW's website at www.conspiraciesagainstwellness.com and click on Archive Shows. Tonight, I will share my personal story on a false positive urine analysis drug screen I had back in October. Also, if you'd like to call in and share your personal experience with UDAs, please call in at 415-915-2291. And tonight we have a special guest co-host, Stacy Fields. Stacy, thank you for joining CAW this evening. How are you? Oop. Hello, Stacy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. So,
Good.
I don't know.
We're going to turn the tables on you tonight.
Okay, sounds good. Go for it.
Okay. I know that you had an issue with a UA recently.
Yes.
And I would like for you to tell us a little bit about your experience.
Sure. Well, in October of 2018, I was supposed to get a ketamine infusion, and I got a call 2 days before it, and I was told I popped. When they said, you pop, well, first of all, they called me and they just said, you will no longer be a patient of ours, and you will not be getting your ketamine infusion, which my pain management doctor at her office, I got ketamine infusions, my pain medication or pain management medication, and I get stem cell injections there. And when they said I popped, I was like, what is that? And then they said, well, you tested positive for cocaine. And I was just shocked. I didn't even know what to say. And at that point, my boyfriend, he's been with me for over 3 years and has gone to all my appointments with me. And I put him on speakerphone because I didn't really know what to say or how to respond. And I kind of wanted him there, too, to say, hey, look, she hasn't done anything wrong. So.
Sure.
And then from
Did they offer you a retest when you said?
No. I asked them if I could get retested, and they said, no, this office only tests patients every 3 to 6 months. And I'm like, well, is that just your office, or is that, an overall thing? And they said, that's our office. So they refused to do it. I was on the phone with them for about 2 hours, trying to hold it together. And, prior to this, I never really looked into, I didn't know much about this. I didn't know, about, I just knew about the drug test itself, but I didn't know about the accuracy or, everything else that we'll go into here. Let's see what else.
So,
go ahead.
What did you do after they told you that you had popped and they were no longer going to see you? What was your next step?
At first, I didn't know what to do. The first thing I did is I called a doctor friend that has always been really helpful and that I've been working with, and he sent me a ton of information and research on urinary drug screenings. But the biggest thing was he said, these are not accurate. And I couldn't find the exact accuracy rates, but I do remember, depending on what you looked at, they were different. But, I mean, they're not even close to 100%. I could just say that. And this is for the urine drug screenings. I guess.
Wow.
So I think it's important that we talk about, or that people know, like, what happened at the screening. So when I go in,
Right.
I go in, they give me the cup. Sometimes it would be either before my my meeting, or well, my appointment with my doctor, or it was right after. This one was at the end of my appointment, and so I went in, went to the bathroom. They gave me a cup, and they don't have it. It's not sealed or anything like that on either side, so I don't have to break anything. I didn't sign anything beforehand, so I went in. They let you go in with your purse and stuff like that. So I went to the bathroom, closed it up, and then put it in the wall. And then I opened the door and I asked them if it's okay if I can wash my hands and flush. And they said, sure. So I do that. And then that day, it was different every time. But that day, I came out afterwards and just left. You know, I made my next appointment and left. Now, when I was on the phone with the nurses, which I was on for like 2 hours, I said this one nurse came on. There was like 5 of them I spoke with, or the office people, and she was like, you know, don't you remember? Afterwards, you signed something, and I made you, or I had you look at your sample, and you agreed that you signed it, and there was a date, and it was your birthday and everything, and that was you. And I had to think about it because I couldn't really remember. But then after thinking for like a few seconds, I was like, no, that never happened. That, like, I didn't see you after I was leaving. I mean, I think she was down the hall somewhere. But so I don't know what happened to the sample afterwards. After researching a lot,
Anybody could have taken it out of the wall.
right? Well, that, or they could have mixed up my samples, which I found out also that day during my appointment. My doctor told me that the doctor down the street just lost her license and all of her patients, so she was getting all of her patients, and they also just moved to a new office, and so I have to imagine, you know, like, I'm saying I didn't do this. I never did this. I'm not a drug addict. I've not done cocaine. I was really, really shocked. So
how did they treat you?
Well, it was really, they didn't believe me. That those 2 hours, I was pleading with them, and I was like, can I have another test? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I see the doctor? And they also said, we've sent out certified letters to all your doctors, and which was like my dentist, my primary care doctor, anybody that I'm going to currently, which I'm not sure if that's okay, like you're allowed to do that, or I don't know if that's against HIPAA laws.
That's proper protocol.
Right. So I knew that if I didn't fight this, that and stand up for myself, I would lose complete care for everything in the future, and I'm not able to do that because I've had chronic illness, diseases, and stuff like that, because I broke my neck when I was 16. So I've had this for 24 years. And now I have, a few incurable diseases and other things. So, if I lost my treatments and medications, I don't know how I'd be able to live. I'm not really sure. And it's been 16 years that I've had that I've gone to a primary care doctor. I'm sorry, a pain management doctor, and basically for the 16 years of my life, every month I have to get tested. I don't think it was like that often, in the beginning, many, many years ago, but that is what it is now. So,
right. So, tell us what you did to get from being told you had a positive to going back and talking to them again and pleading your case.
So, I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time? Because I just couldn't hear you very well.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
What did you do after that to plead your case and be able to get back to where you need to be.
Right. Well, I started to research. Before I got off the phone with them that day, they said that they would have the manager of their office, where they do the testing, call me, which she called me the next day. But in the, within the time I got the call to then, I was just researching and looking up stuff. So I found a ton of sites, that I wrote down, and I just started to kind of go through all of that. And then I also, my boyfriend and I, we both wrote out what happened the day of the testing, and went and had those, what is it called? Oh, sugar. Brian, what is it called when you go to the office and get it, not certified?
Notarized.
Notarized, thank you. Yeah. I had it notarized. No, but I held off giving them that because so when the doctor called, or the manager called me the next day, I asked her, "Has this ever happened before?" And she said no, which later on I found out wasn't true. And she said, this is the first time that these tests are 100% accurate. And I said, well, that's interesting because of all the research I've done, it doesn't look like it's 100% accurate. And I do see somebody calling in, and I will get you in a moment. Not yet. So I just kind of went from there, and she said, well, I will talk to the doctor and come back with all this stuff. But what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to send in the certified letters, and they wanted me to send all the information that I found, which I thought was strange because, like, I asked her, well, this is like through Google searches. This is like not hard stuff to find. Oh, the other thing they asked me is to any other medications I was on that my pain management doctor might not prescribe me, any over-the-counter medications I took, and any supplements or essential oils, anything that I could use to write all of that down. That was another thing I was so surprised about, all the different things that can come up as a false positive. And then, so what I did, and which can be like Afrin, the nasal spray, antibiotics, even things like poppy seeds and stuff like that. I mean, there's a long list of stuff. So, and
I'm sure that they know that things can cause false positives.
Well, they didn't say that.
Even
but,
though they
yeah.
tell you it doesn't happen.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they said. So, anyway, so a week later, I got a call back from them, and they said, your doctor decided that she will write a prescription for you, well, or okay it, that you can go in and get hair tested. And a hair test is 90 days out. Like, it will tell you 90 days out. And you know what? Do you mind if we take this call quickly and see?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Give us 1 second. Oh. Hello, caller from area code 209. What's your name and where are you from?
Oh, my name's Ariane. Is this Jonelle?
Yeah. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
All right. I'm weighing in on the drug testing. I have a few issues with drug testing for medication. I actually don't receive medication for my chronic pain anymore because I refused to drug test after the second time. And there's a number of reasons that I kind of feel like we go down a real slippery slope with drug testing. And one is we sign away our rights.
Yes.
With the contract?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the right as American citizens not to be searched without probable cause.
And I completely
sign those
agree.
rights away. We sign those rights away in order to get medicine that we need. And we're told if we don't like it, we can go somewhere else. But there is nowhere else to go.
No, you're absolutely right. Who's going to take you?
Well,
Right.
the thing is that it's the same policy everywhere. So despite the right that we have the right to go elsewhere, it's going to be the same policy everywhere.
Right.
First of all. Second, the inaccuracy of drug testing is notorious. You get kicked off of pain management for much less than popping positive.
Right.
I'm nervous, so you'll have to excuse me.
No, that's okay.
The third thing is it's humiliating.
Yes.
It's humiliating going through that once a year, twice a year, or more, not to mention pill counts, all of which are pretty much unnecessary for a patient with chronic pain.
Right.
If you have a chronic illness or injury and you're a long-term chronic pain patient, your status doesn't change all that much as far as your condition.
Right.
Then the fact that we can jump through every single hoop they put up in front of us, and we're still denied, or we're force tapered.
Right.
You can P-test and do everything they tell you. You go in, and they'll say, I'm sorry, we're cutting your dosage. So regardless of what we do, it doesn't matter in the end. So anyway,
well,
I'm very anti-drug contract.
Yeah, and I met somebody else that did the same for a while, and then finally their doctor wasn't going to allow them to just keep going on any longer. They have EDS, and they finally gave in, and said, okay, fine, because you're right. If we want to have proper care that we need.
The patient or the doctor gave in, Jonelle?
The patient gave in. The patient
the patient gave in, yeah.
Yeah, because the doctor said, well, we're not going to, prescribe anything any longer. We're not going to treat you any longer if you don't do this. And they can't live without their treatments or their medications. So, and like many of us can't. And sadly, when we start, having long-term, out-of-control pain. And by the way, because I've seen a lot of people talk about this. Like, we're not talking about acute pain here. We're not talking about, we had to go get surgery and then, you have maybe a few days of medication.
But even that is being affected now.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen people wake up out of surgery and they're not getting even any in the hospital, and they're not getting the morphine drip that they're supposed to get or whatever. It's terrible. And then and the other thing that we're dealing with too is it's not just having a hard time getting a prescription. It's having then it's also the pharmacies now. It's also our health insurances. Right. It's all of it. So it's like if they can't get us one way, they're going to get us another way. And I'm saying us because I'm talking about.
Well, I think it's kind of almost by design. We're set up to fail from the very get-go. We're treated like we're criminals, like you said, by pharmacy staff, by hospital staff. We've done nothing wrong. Never had any reason for doctors to question us about medication. I personally, after the second drug test, I had already made up my mind after the first one. I was humiliated. I cried all the way home.
Yeah.
And I swore I would never do it again. And it took another year. Well, it wasn't quite a year. I called in for a refill. I was told I would need to come in and drug test. And I told my doctor, no, I'm not doing it again. And I was denied, and I knew this. I had already made up my mind, and I knew I would be denied. It's been over 5 years, and I live with pain every day. I have degenerative disc disease in my neck after an injury. I also have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, which causes body-wide pain. And over the last 4 years, I've had 5 surgeries, unrelated. So I can attest to all of it. I can attest to the post-surgical denial and restriction. I can attest to chronic pain patients being denied. And this urine drug testing, I've heard doctors say it's necessary for safety, and I call bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I agree with you, Erin.
Well, maybe if, you have a patient who's on ultra high doses, and you need to monitor levels. But somebody taking a 7.5 Lortab 4 times a day probably doesn't need to be monitored.
Right.
Not to mention, despite all this, the OD deaths are still going up. Why is that? Because it was never about prescriptions.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a really great quote from Dr. Jeffrey Fudin, who will be on our guest next Tuesday at 8/7 Central. And he said, he's created a software and a cell phone app to help clinicians actually interpret urine drug immunoassays. I can't say it. Immunoassays. It's called
Immunoassays.
Yeah, thank you. And it creates an automated, comprehensive electronic note and guide to guide clinicians. And this is important, he says, because it's a misinterpretation of the urine drug test, which has caused honest patients to be kicked out of their pain clinics. And Fudin stated in an article for aacc.org, he said compounding problems for these patients documented but misconstrued or inadequate notes in a patient's medical charts makes it difficult for them to get an opioid prescription from any other doctor. And again, he'll discuss this more in detail. But I was just, all the research I've done, also, in the CDC guidelines in 2016, they recommend clinicians test patients before the beginning of opioid therapy at least once or annually. But that's it. And again, this is a CDC guideline. It's not law, whatever. And after talking to so many doctors, and I know they've said it on the program before, they've said you don't actually even need to get a pain contract. You don't need to get urine tests or screenings, none of them, unless if there's a reason why. So,
No, unless it's a hospital policy or a clinic policy, and then they fall back on that. But the reality is they'd rather just wash their hands of us and go by the guidelines just in case, or get rid of us altogether. That's basically what's happening. And the further we go down this road, the more patients who are suffering and the more patients who are taking their own lives because they're not adequately being treated despite all these guidelines.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's it. I mean, that's basically, my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Well, thank you so much for calling me, and I appreciate
just find this... Okay, thank you.
Oh, did you have anything else to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't hung up. But...
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, no. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it because, I don't meet a lot of people that have, that haven't or that have refused to do that. So, but, all right. Well, Ariana, thank you again, and I appreciate the knowledge, and I guess I'll talk to you online again. Are we on social media together? Okay. Sorry.
We're linked on social media.
Okay. Oh, sorry. We have another call. Caller from area code 512. Can you hear? Oh, hi, area code. Hi
there. This is Spoonie Des.
I'm sorry. What's your name?
This is Spoonie Des.
Hello. How are you tonight?
Hey. Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the urine screenings at these pain management clinics. I had an issue where apparently I'm a excessive metabolizer, and twice my drug test came up as negative for anything in my system, and I almost got it booted out of my pain management for that, for something that I really couldn't control at all.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront as well. There's also that issue of if it's not in your system, even if it's for a legitimate physiological cause, you can still lose your pain management.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily that didn't happen to me, but it could have. If one of my PAs didn't stick up for me and advocate for me, it probably would have happened.
Yeah.
So
what gets me with that is there's a simple test that they can do on all of us that tells them exactly how we metabolize drugs. So they would know what dose we need.
Yeah, they never did that with me, and I still have not been tested for it because at the time I didn't have insurance. And that's something I think a lot of us face too, and we're red flagged for being cash patients and so forth. I lost my insurance about a year ago, and I just finally got on Medicaid. So I do need to get something like that done, though, because I subsequently got cut by 60% in the span of 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I was thrown into...
I happen to know that Medicaid will pay for that test.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that.
You have to stay on them. That's one thing I've learned.
I know somebody else that had it.
Yeah.
Say again? Say again?
I know somebody else that had it, and they were on Medicaid. They paid for it.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah, that would be really helpful, and I do need to find a new pain management clinic now, because now my clinic doesn't take Medicaid after taking it the first time, so I don't know what's going on with that, but just more hoops.
Well,
so it's going to be tough trying to find a new...
Yeah. And
we're going to see more of that.
Yeah.
Doctors stopping to take it.
Well, and one thing that I've learned, though, is you can't give up, and because so many people, when I started speaking publicly about what happened with me, I didn't realize how many people have issues with this or have lost all their care, because of health, because of their insurance or because, a test or false positive, and they didn't fight. And, it's just not, it's not fair. We already are having hard enough time,
Yeah, and I had no idea the community was so large either. Apparently this is a common occurrence, so pretty sadly.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sorry you guys went through that too.
Same here. And I hope you're able to...
medicine is regressing.
Yes. Does anybody know, Stacy, do you know if there's a way that, like an online place where you can find, pain management doctors, or is there any groups out there that they talk about?
There are some sites that you can go on and be referred to doctors.
Okay.
I can't think of the name of one off the top of my head, but I know there are some out there. I've seen them before.
Okay. Well, maybe if after the show, you can post it up on your social media accounts so people will know, or if anybody out there knows, please let us know. So, well, thank you so much for calling in and sharing that. I didn't think of that. Like, I didn't think about even. I didn't think even about, that if you didn't have your insurance, how you're looked at as well. There's just so many angles to all this.
Yeah.
It's just difficult.
There really are.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me on, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Des.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. So,
Jonelle?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I believe we were at the point where they agreed to let you go get a hair test.
Right. Yeah. So I
would like for you to talk about that hair test.
Right. Yeah. No, because I was freaking out after that as well. So before I went in, nobody really knew that I talked to, because I didn't want to tell anybody what was going on, because honestly, I felt like, even though I know I didn't do anything wrong, I felt like, and I'm so sorry about this, but even within our community and stuff like that, I felt like, oh, well, you know what? People would think she really probably did do this, because I didn't know how often this happens. And I was just so afraid of the judgment. So yeah, I went in and got a test at LabCorp near me, and I watched a YouTube channel channel or show before this of how it was supposed to be done. So when I went in, they took a lot more hair than what it said on the thing. Like it was pretty big cuts in the back of my head. Like you could feel it for a while. And I have long hair, and they took it from 3 different places. But when she did it, she didn't have like gloves on. She put the bottom and top of my hair, like some of it, she, started to lose a grip of, and like grabbed it and then put the bottom of my hair with the top of my hair, which, they need the top part, because the end part of your hair, especially if you have longer hair, it's, a lot more open to the toxins in the air, or who knows what you have, that could get on it. So I was watching that, and then, she put it on the counter, not over anything. She didn't seal anything before I left.
Which can contaminate the sample.
Right. I didn't know. I have no clue who was in there before me or, what they were doing on there. It was just, I started paying attention to everything, and I was afraid that anything can, go wrong at this point. So, luckily, it came out negative. Everything came out negative. It didn't matter that she put both sides on, and, it's just, I was paranoid. Ariana made
I think anybody would be.
Yeah, and Ariana made up a great point, and I wanted to mention this too. When this happened to me, I felt like I was a criminal. Like, I felt like so down and low and dirty, and I had like this guilty conscience suddenly that I normally don't have, like, for no reason. And it was so difficult. Like, I felt like there was this rain cloud over me, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was freaking out because I didn't know how I'd ever get health care again, or if anybody would see me if I couldn't get this changed or fixed. So
right.
So what ended up happening is everything obviously came out negative. The doctor's office called me when they got the results back, and they didn't apologize. The doctor apologized, but they asked me if I would still want to continue going there. And because I don't really know any other place that you could get ketamine infusions, and I didn't know any other place that I could get stem cell injections. So I didn't want to go away from that, and I didn't know how hard it would be to find another doctor that gave me, the medications I was on, even though over a year ago I was dropped 2/3 off of my meds. It was still better than nothing,
Right.
So yeah, it's just.
So you've been able to get all of your care back and your medical records cleared from that?
They said they were going to clear my records. I still have not been able to get a hold of them, so I'm not sure. But I did ask them to send certified letters back to the people that they sent it out to originally, stating that I had this. I'm still waiting, and it's been since October? Well, November. That's when I found out all of it was okay. Now, when I did go and see my doctor, she told me that, she's apologized. She apologized for that, and she said to me that, I asked her if this ever happened to anybody in her office before, and she said, "Oh yeah, it happens a lot more than you think." And I'm like, and she's like, "But I haven't had anybody that had a false positive, and that, they were that it was not correct." So that was just, I just said, well, if you'd like any of the information that I have, that I've learned on this, I'd be happy to share it with you. I shared it to your manager to get these, and she did apologize. I think I said that, but I felt a little bit better. I'm just hoping that nothing ever changes between her and I, like, and we can be equal. One thing I did notice is when I went in to get, I had to get, screened again, a drug test. They completely changed things. They now followed to the bathroom with me. They stayed there for when I came out. They had me sign a stickered thing with my name and my birth date. And after I'm finished and they have the sample, they put a sticker on it saying that it's sealed and with my signature and my birth date on it. So hopefully, they learned something from this.
Right. The bad thing is, once you get to that lab, then you don't know all over again who touched it.
Right. I mean, you'd think that they would handle it in a correct way. And I was looking everywhere before we came on tonight, but there's only, I think if it's 100 or 200 certified places that actually are certified to do these tests. So the test that you get done in your doctor's office, I feel like it puts you even to more of a possible risk or inaccuracy, because, you know, they're not certified in how to properly handle it. Also, they're just going off of the little strip test at that point. You know, when they send it into the secondary thing, that's when you get the gas test and stuff like that. And but even then, you know, if you have something in your system from, I don't know, over-the-counter drugs or an antibiotic, and it is testing positive for that, and it's a false positive, you know, what are they supposed to do at that point? And you think, I would hope that doctors, if somebody is being that adamant that they didn't test, or that they didn't do anything, that they would retest them. That's one thing.
Yeah, I think that should be policy.
Right. You know, I can't remember if they said this to me or not, but, you know, they said, well, blood tests, it only lasts 24 hours, anything in your system. And she's like, and this was like a week and a half or 2 weeks later after my test with them. She's like, you know, it wouldn't be in your system anyway if you had that anymore. This is the one thing I was thinking about, though, too. Wouldn't you say your patient did do an illegal substance or was taking something that they shouldn't? Don't you think, as your patient and they're your doctor, that they would want to help you in a correct way? Because basically they give you 30 days of whatever prescription that you are on and tell you to go to a rehab specialist or go to another doctor, find another doctor. I just would think that, you know, they would want to be more involved.
I agree.
Right.
And I've read that if they come across an addict that tests dirty, it's a completely different scenario. They want them to work with them.
Right, yeah.
But yet the pain patients are just tossed out.
Right. Hey, Brian, give me a second. Lilliana says, could you turn the ocean down? Oh, okay, sorry about that. No, you're absolutely right. I feel like pain, you know, people that have substance abuse issues, you know, they get better care, or they're prescribed like methadone, and I know that's an opioid, and they don't have the trouble that we have. Although I don't want to say, like, I know they have problems too within that, and they don't get completely treated right. But comparing this for medication, yeah, it's harder to get, I believe.
Right. And, you know, a lot of people probably wouldn't have fought like you did to prove that you hadn't done anything wrong.
Right. And I waited about a month to say anything publicly, but yeah, so many people responded, and were, because I did a FaceTime Live, and they said, man, I went through the same thing, but I didn't fight. So I think it's important that if this does happen to you, you know, you need to speak up and you need to fight. One thing I was told to do is use certain language when you're talking to the doctor that is claiming that there's a positive on a test and it's a false positive. There's certain language of, you know, like letting them know that, one, this is medical malpractice, to just like drop you like that. And especially if you're saying you didn't do it and you didn't do it. Another thing is, you know, for me at least, I use very strong language without saying I'm going to sue you, but basically that I'm saying that, which I think is why they kept following up and stuff like that. And which, by the way, also, I was thinking about before they, you know, it took a week, but before they offered to give me the testing for the hair testing, I looked into that, and at least here where I'm at, it's like $2,000 to get a hair sample test. I don't have that money to get tested, but I don't know. I guess I could have put it on a credit card. If I had to, I probably would have, if that was like my last resort or option.
It's too bad that it's just not policy everywhere, that if they get a positive, they automatically should do a second test, in my opinion.
No, I agree. They should. You know. Did I miss anything with that? I don't think so. Stacy?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think you did.
Yeah. Did you have anything
I'm
to
reading
add?
where they were all having trouble hearing us.
Oh yeah. Don't worry about that. I can't look on there. I'm sorry, guys, at YouTube, but I can't talk and do this at the same time. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, Brian fixed it already. So, if anybody else has any, thing that they would like to add or call in with, I would love to hear from you. We'll stay on here for a few more minutes. I know we had one call and I was talking, so I apologize I didn't get to you. But if you'd like to call back in, we could take your call. It's sad, and I'm so sorry to everybody that doesn't have care now and that's lost it. And it's so sad that everybody we have to go through all this. I wish that I could take it away from everybody. And I think the only thing we really can do is just speak up. And fight it if it happens, and educate and research ourselves. We have to research, and we can't just like go along with what is told to us anymore. We have to know what's going on. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that everybody gets their medical records once a year and looks for erroneous stuff in them.
Yeah.
Especially if you experience something like a false positive.
Yep, I agree. We have another caller. Brian, you want to put him through?
Yeah.
Caller from area code 336. Hi. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Lelena Peacock.
Oh, hi, Lelena. How are you?
Hi, Lelena.
Hi. I have a story that's actually quite recent, and boy, was it ever scary. I'm gonna turn my computer down real quick where I'm listening to you guys talk on there, and I'll stop making sense. But yeah, the same thing happened to me, a very similar thing that happened to you, Jonelle.
Okay.
And in my case, instead of cocaine, a trace of amphetamine and methamphetamine had shown up on my urinalysis.
Wow.
And let me just say really quickly, I've never even seen nor touched such a drug in my life, and it was terrifying. I've been with that particular pain clinic for 7 years, so they were actually somewhat nicer about it to me, but still stern.
Right.
And snippy. I mean, like, they could have been worse to me about it. And I said, look, I don't know what's going on here, but there is no way. You send it off immediately for whatever testing we have to have done to find out what tripped those metabolites, because it's impossible. I barely get out of the house.
Right.
I don't even know where I would acquire such a thing.
Yeah. Well, and what I've heard too from people.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
it. From people I've also heard, like, because even with my doctor, I mean, they've gone to them for years, and doctors will be very friendly and kind, and then suddenly it's just like night and day. At least that was for me. I was so surprised and shocked, and a lot of people have said that. But I'm glad your doctors were not as bad. So what exactly happened? Like, I mean, how did they treat you when it happened? What was the procedure for them?
Well, what had happened was I had spoken. They called me in, and I live rather close to the pain clinic, and I said, I'm not doing this over the phone. I'm coming over there right now. We're going to do this in person. Make time.
Right.
I'm coming. I've gotten a little bolder about it. Now, let me tell you, my heart was beating out of my chest. I was terrified, just like everybody, like PTSD level anxiety. Like, how could this happen? And I got down there and I sat and spoke with the nurse, and I said, look, are there drugs I don't know about over the counter that could cause this to show up on an immunoassay urine test? and look as if I have done something wrong. And she said, yeah, there are. And I said, let's talk about what those drugs are, please, because this is just inaccurate, and I will fight it all the way in court if I have to. That's what I said. That's as far as I got to. And I said, and I'm not a litigious person, is what I followed that statement up. And this was with the kinder nurse that actually knows me pretty well, you know.
Yeah, good for you.
So, we send it off for, I believe it's the gas chromatograph test.
Yes.
Is that what it's called? It's a more sensitive test. It's not the hair test.
Yeah, it's mass spectrometry based assay. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I can't say it either.
Mass spectrometry.
Correct.
Or something.
Yeah, or gas test.
And I had forgotten that I had taken half of a Dramamine because I've been struggling of late with vertigo. I've had a lot of really debilitating vertigo, and I just did not. Folks, I didn't even think about how that could affect my drug test.
Yeah.
You know, it was half of a Dramamine. I thought, well, it's for seasickness. Maybe it'll help the vertigo. It basically just knocked me out. And, of course, they're not going to give me any Valium to help with the, you know, or anything that actually works to help vertigo. So that's what happened to me. And when they sent it off, I brought up, I had remembered I took Dramamine, and I said, could that be it? And it came back and showed that indeed, yeah, that it was a metabolite that came from that, as the doctor put it, it tickled the amphetamine. I can't remember how he put it, but he said it made it look as though I had ingested something that I didn't, and he actually apologized to me.
Yeah, what it is there's certain level,
rare,
right? Oh, yeah. There's a certain level that you know, you have to have in your system, and that's what kind of kicks it over and, you know, makes it positive, negative, or whatever. But
right,
that's a really great point, because like I you know, I didn't remember taking, because I've been having allergies and stuff like that, and I used Afron, and you know what, I don't even use that normally, but I didn't even know that was on the list. Yeah, so you really have to start thinking of what you take, you know, and maybe we just shouldn't, because we're under such hard scrutiny at this moment. So they believed you. They listened.
Well, they did listen. Now, I did get lectures, and I got hateful, dark, cloudy looks from the doctor, the nurse. I was like, look, it was easier to approach her. And I said, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, either somebody has made a mistake, there was residue in some testing bin. I don't know how this stuff
mixed
works.
it up.
Something went wrong. You know, mixed up my sample. It will not stand. This is not. It's just not true.
Well, Lilina, let me ask you.
I understand that they're.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. So how do they do the urine screenings where you're at? Do they, like, when they give you the little jar or whatever, is it sealed? Do you how can you go through the process for your thing? Because I want to know if it's different.
Right. Well, we come behind, and I say we because I'm often with my mother because she has dementia, and that does give me a little leeway, you know, as a patient, because I'm a caregiver, and I help her because she has pain issues as well. But what we do is we come behind a locked door into the treatment part of the clinic where the examination rooms are. We are given a cup, and they are the one that cracks the seal, and then they hand it to you. Don't know what that's about, but that's what they crack the seal, and of course they've written the label and the time and all that good stuff. And you go in unattended, thankfully. I don't know if there's a camera. I never really looked.
In the bathroom or outside? You mean like outside the doorway? A camera? Hello?
Waiting to be picked up in it.
Sorry. You suddenly were off. We didn't hear what you just said.
Okay. I'm so sorry. My signal sometimes drops out on my cell phone. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we put it in the metal door with the other samples. Sometimes there are other previous patient samples in there, I mean, they're all labeled. And then you're done giving your sample. They give you a little leeway, like if you can't pee before your appointment for whatever reason, which has happened to my mother, you can wait till the end of the appointment. You just have to produce it before you leave the locked portion of the pain clinic.
Right. Okay.
Because there's like a secured area.
Interesting.
So that's the monthly, and it is done monthly procedure, and we do immunoassay tests to start, and if they see anything scary, they move on to the mass spectrometry. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
And I demanded it immediately. I didn't hesitate. I said, retest it now.
And they did.
And that, they kind of reared back. They kind of reared back at me.
Mm-hmm.
Not like reared back like, oh, I mean, like at the confidence. But again, I'm at the point where, since I am a caregiver,
mm-hmm.
it's just like I don't know. It helped me be a little bolder in this last year, because I'm kind of mad at the way they've treated my mother. They're trying to taper her, so I'm a little bit less inclined to take. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, go ahead, fire me.
Right.
I just kind of have grown this really weird antagonistic attitude lately.
Well, and
I'm not mean,
but
I'm firm.
Right.
I'm really firm with them.
But a lot of us don't have anything else to lose really anymore. I mean, like, there's not a lot of options there.
I guess I've gotten sort of that point
mm-hmm.
where it's just like, what I mean? And it's everything's at stake, and I am not trying to minimize being scared. I have literally been in there shaking. I've gone through crying, weeping, all of it, guys. I don't want it to make it sound like I'm the patient superhero that charges in and doesn't take any crap. No, I've taken plenty of crap. I'm just at a point where it's like, looks like you guys are planning on cutting us off anyway. Go ahead and do it now. I dare you. I mean, I don't say that, but that's how I'm starting to feel.
Right.
I'm really angry. Can you tell?
Well, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people on the chat too right now on YouTube that are talking about the anxiety, just the normal anxiety anyway that we get from going to our doctors or even at the pharmacy now. Because they're looking at you sideways.
Yes. The anxiety is crippling.
Right. I'm wondering how many people.
A lot of patients are being talked to really bad too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I think a lot of patients are being talked to pretty badly too.
Oh yes.
That's intimidating from the start,
Yes. And at this last appointment, for my mother, since I have to accompany her for her memory issues, the doctor, he's actually a PA, started to lecture her. I have patients who have screws in their back that are on doses lower than you are, and I said, Michael, look, we're not talking about those patients. We're talking about this patient, because that's when I really grow fangs, is when they lecture her, because she would give them the deed to her house just to be nice to her and visit with her. I mean, she's just a sweet woman. I mean, it's gotten so bad. And I said, we are not talking about anyone else. We're talking about this patient. She has severe pain and a stenosis. We need to handle that pain. And now we're going to be doing an involuntary taper on a 73-year-old woman with documented pain issues.
Right.
Severe pain issues. Is that what we're doing? what is our target morphine milligram equivalent, please?
Right. Well, and this
Has
is
she
the thing.
failed a urine test? To get back to our topic, I mean, it's gotten really bad for them to lecture.
And the whole thing with
know.
this was even supposed to be was about to, it's not supposed to be about the people that are really having those problems. It's just supposed to be able to, if somebody is misusing their medications or whatever, it's the very few, honestly, that they can get help. It's not to make everybody out there to be,
that's right.
The drug users.
Firing shouldn't be the go-to.
Right. And overdoses. I mean, are we really going to be overdosing? I don't think so.
Right. I don't think so either. And, I spoke with a man who also, he's under-medicated. He suffers from what Doug Hale suffers from, essentially. One of the pain syndromes that is called the suicide disease, as you well know.
Right. Yeah, I have that. CRPS,
and he's barely making him. Yeah,
Yep. No, and it is hard.
Probably fail. Yeah, it's gotten to the point where, as Terry was pointing out, that we have a problem when this becomes an adversarial relationship where these urinalysis are used to really convict the patient of crimes that they're not even charged with.
Right.
And the fact that even eating a poppy seed muffin could skew their test, and that they have to keep up with that. And that's the truth.
Well, I would be interested in
so many factors.
Right. I would be interested in how much, that's okay. If they know how much it actually takes for your body to show it up in. But the problem is like Ariana was saying earlier, she metabolizes things quickly. I do too. So,
right.
How do we do this?
Des as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Dr. Thomas Klein was telling me that there is a test, I know you could find it in PubMed, where it's, I forget the name of it, but I'll find out. And it's about, it will be able to actually test from your gut through a saliva, I think, or something, of the actual amount of the opioid or whatever that they're wanting. It's not so much of everything.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Sure. And it would really be nice to have this be tailored, as Terry Lewis was saying, to the patient instead of just turning towards this trend of you're a criminal, you're evil, you're on trial, you're such a bad, evil patient. It's really destructive. And
it's like being proven guilty before you've had a trial.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. We're all on trial. We're all guilty of something even before we do pee. That's how I feel. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but that is every month for me. And poor Stacy and poor Jonelle and poor Des, you three heard me just wringing my hands about that messed up test from the Dramamine.
Yeah. Well,
are they going to kick me out of the I mean,
it was interesting because when I first spoke about this in November, I was just talking about, how, I had to go into the bathroom. I did what I had to do. I put it in the wall, and then I wiped and everything like that. I opened the door and I asked if I could wash my hands and flush the toilet. And somebody wrote, "Man, are you in jail? Or, what is this?" And I didn't ever think of it that way, but yeah, it does kind of sound like it,
And I don't remember where I saw this, but I heard or read somewhere that these tests are often, those that they use for pain clinics, more sensitive than what they give people that are on probation. I don't know if that's true. That might be a terrible rumor. But
yeah, I've never heard that.
Doubt it.
I have not heard of that. Now,
I've never heard it, but it didn't surprise me.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Stacy?
And it would be, I mean, and again, that's just possibly a rumor. I don't want to be responsible for scaring people to death. Not that, but I just, it based on, hey, let's see how these drugs are working in this person.
Oh, she's out.
In fact, taking anything that could kill them. That. Or did I go out again?
Yeah, it's okay. The only thing that I know of, no, that's okay. The only thing I know of is, for sure, is the what they test for, the amount. Usually it's just a 5-panel thing on the little, the immunoassay test, the little strip test. And then it could go up from there. It could go from 10 to 15 to, I don't know. They have a ton of them, actually. But there's no real reason, and I think it's all because of money, too. But there's no reason that you need to be testing for 15 or more drugs within you. I don't think so.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like that they should only be able to test us for the drugs that they're giving us.
Right. Well,
I
unless
agree.
I've given you reason to suspect that I've done something wrong,
Yeah. Well, there's
the healthcare system doesn't need to be fractured to the point that they have to be looking up our. I mean, it's as if we are already in a criminal system.
Yeah.
And they're looking up our rap sheets every time we come in for our, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's how I feel.
Well, now I've found out, I've heard too.
Like,
I've heard what else can happen is like the DOJ, the DEA and stuff like that. If you test positive for anything, and your local police, they're going to start sending your positive tests to those places, institutions, and then you'll be put on a list or a watch list, or just another way to kind of
yeah,
it's all about
that's
control.
That's where I absolutely that is that's search and seizure. That is out of bounds. That is against our rights. That's against the And I am really big on those freedoms and privacy.
Yes.
And I'm with Ariane and Des on that one. And both of you guys seem to be too, where it's just like, okay, that's wrong. And I believe Dr. Lewis pointed that out in that wonderful show last night, that when it becomes a tool to criminalize, there's a real problem here. And that's the direction we seem to be going.
Yep.
I mean, we're already there. I mean, I seem to be. It's, yeah.
And sadly, none of us wanted this.
I've heard stories about VA patients who someone has to be present while they are peeing.
Well, the VA, at least in North Carolina, you can't even get prescribed opioids anymore. And you can use medical marijuana, but you're not allowed to. It's like a don't ask, don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. It's strange. I don't understand that either. So
my God,
they basically don't want
insane.
people to get anything. Right. Well, even like last week when I was talking about when I had the women on about kratom, there's no testing for that yet, and I feel like before there's so many things that people want to say. Oh well, we want you to do alternative things, but they're switching the laws. They're putting pressure on the doctors and then patients before they even have alternatives to put us on or something to work with. Right, there are none. Not that work.
Yes. Or if here I come in with questions about this alternative. Hey, what about kratom?
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm getting that sideways look again. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Are you talking about spice? Because some doctors don't even. I mean, it's amazing some of the ignorance I have run into.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
as if it's that, yeah, this is actually a high I'm seeking.
And the sad thing is, too, it's really pitting doctors and patients against each other. So, you know, we're thinking they're against us. Yeah. And they're automatically looking at us funny, you know, to see if we're doing anything wrong, when really we need to all be working together. You know, like, doctors are our friends. And, I mean, I'm not saying all doctors, but, you know, it's just a lot of many doctors don't want to stand up because they don't want to get in trouble.
I can completely. While I think that it is going to take our doctors standing up, I think that they keep turning to us and saying, "Oh, you patients have to do it." I think the doctors have to do it now and say enough.
Right.
I agree.
And band together state by state and say, "Stop."
Right. Yep.
Because it's just, it's ridiculous.
Well, Lilina, I really appreciate you calling in. Yeah, no. We have to wrap up here soon. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for calling in.
I'm sorry.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add before you get going?
No, I just wanted to thank you so much for all your hard work, and Stacy, all your hard work, and send my love out to everybody listening, and hope you have a low pain evening. If you are indeed a pain warrior, hang in there, and thank you, Call Nation.
Thank you, Lilina.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
And Jonelle, thank you for sharing your story with all of us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you coming on this evening. Did you want to talk about anything before we get going here? Or did you want to add anything?
No, I just want everybody to watch your records. Be careful. They're putting false things in there. And with people having false positives, go back, fight for that second test.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Call Nation, for joining us this evening. It's so important that we continue to educate and support one another, especially with the current climate most patients face. And thank you, Stacy Fields, for guest co-hosting with me this evening. You did a great job.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right, Call Nation. Well, don't forget, next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Standard Time, the Doctor's Corner with Dr. Klein. He'll answer any questions you may have. And at 8/7 Central, Dr. Jeff Fudin will be Call Nation's guest to talk more in depth about toxicology and UDAs. And then next Wednesday, Call Nation, we'd love to hear from you again to share more personal experiences of urinary drug screenings and toxicology reports. It's so important that we speak out and come together and just support one another and work together. Because if we don't, this reminds me of almost like the Civil War era thing, but the modern day Civil War era or movement. We have to come together. This is not going to change. I've talked to so many people. I can't see it changing. And thank you so much on YouTube for everybody joining in and saying hello, and all the callers that came in. So we will see you next week on Tuesday, and have a good night, Call Nation.
Listening to Conspiracies Against Wellness with your host, Jonelle Elgaway. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers, and not necessarily those of EXG LLC, its employees, or sponsors. Copyright 2018 by EXG LLC. All rights reserved.